$20,000 richer, and they'll walk out of here with a pretty sweet title belt as well that they get to carry around to next year's events. A little photograph here, I suppose. Maybe it's selfie time. Who knows here for Oliver Tomajko. Edgar is prepared to do battle as well. These players will be given the green light in just a moment. And we do want to thank you guys, not just for joining us here today, not just for joining us here this weekend, but for joining us all year long and all decade long here on the SCG Tour. We started from pretty modest beginnings, as you mentioned there in Salt Lake, and now look at us now.
They wouldn't even let us cover the best feature matches. God-awful shirts.
They're really bad.
Yeah.
They were really bad. I made some changes to things. We had to, the shirts were not okay.
Yeah.
Get a button-up and a tie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Have a little class.
Have a little class.
Okay?
You made me stop wearing jeans.
You're damn right I did. You betcha.
Made me stop wearing jeans.
Over turf with those red tennis shoes. You remember that?
I remember seeing that across the hall. We were standing on top of the stage, looking over the hall.
Mm-hmm.
We caught a look at over turf, and I said to you, "You gonna say something to him about it?" Didn't say Ryan or the shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Just said, "You gonna say something to him about it?" And he said, "Yeah, Ryan can't wear those shoes."
Rhino, those have got to go, buddy. Those got to go.
You going for a jog in between rounds?
From humble beginnings.
Yeah.
And now here we are covering our last match of the decade here in 2019.
You doing some calf raises?
Yeah, absolutely. While the match is happening.
Yeah.
Underneath the desk, no one can see. That's all.
God-awful shirts. Those first shirts were...
I still have them at home.
Yeah.
SCG Live shirts.
Oh, no, those all got sent to the Goodwill a long time ago.
Wait, are you talking about the button-up, the black button-ups?
The black button-up.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they weren't short sleeve or long sleeve. They were in between.
Right.
Which no one knows what that is. I don't know what
Yeah.
that is. There's not a name for it. They don't make any sense around your... They don't fit your body.
No.
Is the
No.
thing.
They smell terrible.
Well, I think that's...
They make you smell...
I think that's more on you
No,
than the shirt.
They're optimized for trapping sweat.
Okay. If you say so.
Yeah.
If you say so. Not a problem. I said I would.
Anyway, if you're in the San Diego area and you see someone wearing an SCG Live shirt, probably not part of the commentary team. They got it at Goodwill.
Overturf just tweeted at me, hoodies and sneakers, something to think about. Thought about it. Not going to happen.
That's my preferred style.
I bet it is.
But I have never advocated for it.
I bet it is. Why don't you keep that at the Lodestone Coffee
Yeah.
up there in Minnesota? How about that? We're not bringing that here, my good pal. Hey, Giants, big win for you. Congratulations.
Yep. We're
wanted to let you know.
Gonna let Eli play out the stretch here, just rack up some W's
Mm-hmm.
right off from the sunset.
Put that final record above 500, perhaps?
Maybe.
Okay.
Approaching dangerously close to 500 for his career.
Very nice. Well,
Listen, you just gotta let the chef cook. He was out there dealing today.
he is cooking as we are underway here. Going to get this final match cooking. A ponder is where we begin. A card that you and I have lost most of our life to.
Yeah, that was another early commentary moment for me. Was someone pondered, decided to shuffle, and started pile shuffling, and I said, someone has to stop him. Some sneaking show player. I don't remember who it was. Just piled after a ponder. I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Tropical Island here for Edgar. It's a flooded strand here for Oliver. It's a prismatic vista there for Magalhaes. It's going to be a slow one, folks. Patrick said buckle in. He wasn't kidding.
Settle in.
Get your coffee or whatever your beverage of choice is. Here's a brainstorm. It's been a minute since I got to cover this kind of magic. We just need Joe Lisette with the Sensei's Divining Top to really bring us back to 2014-15.
The bad old days.
That's right.
Interesting in this matchup is going to be the challenge for Edgar of trying to do something proactive here in the face of main deck Pyroblasts. Most of his ways of getting onto the battlefield are blue, and Oliver can fend those off pretty easily for 1 mana. Typically you see that through Spell Pierce, and you can wait it out. Edgar can't wait out Pyroblasts, so how does he go about actually getting something of substance onto the battlefield it's going to be tricky. On the other side of that, Tomajko can resolve Monastery Mentor with way less powerful reaction from Edgar's side. So I think that combination of Monastery Mentor plus Pyroblast into Tomajko's main deck, it's going to be problematic for Edgar. It'll be interesting to see how the game unfolds, how Edgar even decides to engage in doing something proactive in the first place.
Flooded Strand's going to make it a perfect brainstorm, as Volcanic Island's going to be the weapon of choice here for Tomajko. No white mana yet here for Oliver. No Arkham's Astrolabe yet either to fix the mana. But he does have red mana now for the Pyroblast that is in hand. Looks like he has 2 copies, in fact. So we're going to head back over to Oliver. He'll draw a card. 4th turn of the game here. He's picked up a copy. It looks like a Force of Will. And there is a snow-covered plain. So the mana's online. All the colors as we head back over to Edgar. Edgar will play Misty Rainforest. Pass it back. Back to Oliver. Monastery Mentor the draw. Okay. Both Pyroblasts in hand right now. He'll pass. This is a Brainstorm on the end step in combination with 2 different fetch lands, Prismatic Vista and Misty Rainforest. So Edgar's going to draw 3 cards and put 2 back.
Very good chance that the decision to brainstorm here motivated by Edgar being at risk of missing a land drop. The person who misses a land drop first is the one who's most likely to be forced into action, maybe ahead of schedule before they'd prefer. And Edgar willing to just use the brainstorm here to ensure that land drop for next turn.
Let's go with a snow-covered island off the Prismatic Vista to make it a perfect fetch. Again, Edgar's had some serious trouble in the legacy portion of this event, putting up the donut early on yesterday and not able to ever cobble together a legacy win, so now would be a great time to break that losing streak in this portion of the tournament. He feels supremely confident in Standard with Jund Sacrifice, has not lost a match with that deck yet in Standard. And his Modern record has been good enough to get him through. So Tomajko is actually the person who misses the land drop. Edgar has not missed one yet, as he now has a Misty and a Heath. Now here's a Snapcaster Mage. Maybe get a little bit of action going.
Yeah, Tomajko kind of needs to do something. You don't want to be discarding the hand size here. And I like from Magalhaes' perspective, not doing anything from his side. He had the opportunity to say, play a Snapcaster Mage and brainstorm. But if Tomajko is approaching the point where he's discarding a hand size, there's no reason to let him do something like Pyroblast or Snapcaster Mage unless you're going to follow up with something big. So Edgar is playing very passively right now because Tomajko is missing land drops, putting the burden on Tomajko to act first and play into all of Magalhaes' open mana.
2 cards are going to go back on top of the Brainstorm. We're going to head back over to Tomajko, who will draw a card. Now he picked up a copy of Swords to Plowshares. Note, no fetching to be done post-Brainstorm. No fetch land on the battlefield. Here's your attack for 2. Magalhaes is going to fall down to 17. Does Tomajko have a land to play? It looks like the answer is no. He does have Arkham's Astrolabe, however, and he's going to play that with the snow-covered plain. So there's the Astrolabe. Predictably, that's going to resolve. He's picked up his copy of Mentor again. You see the copies of Force of Will in hand, 2 of those. Don't forget about the 2 Pyroblasts that are main deck here that he's found both copies of. He's going to discard Swords to Plowshares, and we're going to head back over to Magalhaes.
And that's a live card in this matchup, so Magalhaes has been paid off by his patience here, not trying to make any sort of moves while Tomajko is missing land drops.
Magalhaes looks pretty comfortable in that chair, has no interest in making a move here at all, as there's another copy of Arkham's Astrolabe. Snapcaster Mage is going to come across for 2 first. Edgar's going to fall down to 15. Now we go to the Astrolabe once again. Draw a card. Looks like that may have been the Veil Summer. Again, remember, Oliver has metagamed to beat the other blue decks in a very meaningful way. Main deck Veils, main deck Teferis, main deck Pyroblast. All of it. Mentor is probably the best threat in these kind of matchups as well because it leaves some knuckleheads behind.
But not right now. Not with Tomajko being tight on mana. And you can see hesitation here to deploy the Monastery Mentor because he knows Magalhaes is going to be able to answer it easily and then capitalize on Tomajko having the shields down.
And Tomajko also considering Teferi here, but it looks like he's going to just discard Monastery Mentor. Okay. Tomajko showing some patience as well. For what it's worth, Tomajko's the one that has the clock on the battlefield, not Magalhaes. So, it looks like Edgar's finally going to make a bit of a move here with something, and it's going to be a Snapcaster Mage. This is on his main phase for what it's worth. There's a Pyroblast. Snapcaster's taken care of. Magalhaes will pass the turn back. So we go back over to Tomajko. Tomajko has drawn a copy of Jace the Mind Sculptor. Snapcaster's going to come in for 2. Magalhaes going to fall down to 13. Kodal of the Ice Fang variety will resolve. Snow Permanence means that it's going to draw a card. Any fetching to be done now if you're Edgar?
I don't want to thin a land out of my deck.
Fair enough.
I think if I'm in Magalhaes' position, every land I draw is excellent, and you want to leave as much as possible. If this game's going to go on for 20-some-odd turns, you're going to have more opportunities to want to shuffle away with your Ponders and Brainstorms. So I would hold tight. It's very hard to flood out in this kind of a matchup.
Well, here's your first card to fight over. It's a Teferi Time Raveler. This resolves the dynamic on the game changes entirely, especially given Tomajko's hand. Because Tomajko's hand is incredibly, incredibly reactive. Now he's got to figure out how he wants to sculpt the fight against this.
Yeah, this is a really nice way of testing the waters here. If it resolves, awesome. And if not, no big loss. Magalhaes still has a boatload of cards in hand.
It looks like Tomajko wants to start with Snapcaster Mage targeting Pyroblast. So Pyroblast is how we will initiate. This is a Veil of Summer. Edgar's only playing 1 copy, where Tomajko is playing 2. Banned in Standard, banned in Pioneer.
That's all, folks.
It wants to resolve right now. And Tomajko's got to fight over this.
I mean, Tomajko's got a hand that can potentially fire back here.
Oh, he absolutely does.
He's got Forces, another Red Blast, and Jace the Mind Sculptor he can even try to play next turn.
And he has a Veil, too. So he's going to play Force of Will, exiling Force of Will. So we're building a stack. Force of Will's looking to counter the Veil. That was looking to blow out the Pyroblast. That's looking to counter the Teferi Time Raveler. So, Edgar, your move.
And you know what? Edgar can even just let this go. He's gotten his money. No shame in this exchange. And you know that Tomajko has 2 main deck copies of Veil. So the incentive is pretty low here to fight back, especially because Tomajko hasn't had an opportunity to do anything profitable with the Veil. It's also not a bad spot to fight back. I mean, if your opponent's willing to force the Veil Summer, maybe you want to pick a fight here. But Edgar could let it go at this point. He has won this exchange.
Well, Force of Will is going to counter the Veil, but I don't think we're done yet because Pyroblast is still on the stack targeting the Teferi Time Raveler. So Magalhaes is going to sacrifice a fetch land. He's going to get his snow-covered island and a snow-covered plain. So he actually sacrificed 2 fetches. Okay. Well, Snapcaster Mage is going to get hit by a Pyroblast. Perhaps Magalhaes had some interest in flashing back a Veil of Summer.
Yep. I mean, now I don't mind forcing back in this spot because there's no risk of Veil. Tomajko is tapped out. Walking into that is much more painful if he's got an open mana.
Well, there's Force, exiling Brazen Borrower. See, you play it because it's blue.
Blue. Pitch it to Force.
Okay. Look at the counter war we're having here. Me, oh my.
There's a Force in this deck? Oh.
Of course, these people, they just play
Whoa.
Let us play anything.
That's just
well, actually, it's a Snow-Covered Force, my Astrolabe, and my Kodal.
Yeah.
So that's why I played it. Veil.
You know, people have Wasteland in their deck.
Veil resolves. Teferi, plus. Oliver's hand right now, I believe, is Veil and Jace. Which,
not a strong holding.
Teferi's up to 5. Defending the Planeswalker.
Magalhaes did an excellent job of navigating that counter war around a potential Veil of Summer. Just excellent.
And you've got to be pretty darn experienced to be able to do that. Here comes Snappy. Snappy Dappy. Kodal trade. Okay.
Interesting to see that being the card you would trade off there. The Kodal is so much better at threatening a Planeswalker than the Snapcaster Mage is against Tomajko's Snapcaster Mage.
Well, it begs the question, as here is Jace going to be doing some brainstorming, of I imagine that Teferi is better at bouncing Snapcaster Maze than it is at bouncing Kotal.
I mean, they're both pretty good.
I agree that they're both good. I think you'd rather have Snap back in your hand to utilize than Kotal back in your hand.
Sure.
And I think that's where the decision point comes. But this game has taken a turn because now Jace the Mind Sculptor's on the battlefield, and that, as I'm sure you know, just like I do, given how much Legacy we've watched, that becomes priority number one. You got to get that thing out of here, because the longer it stays on the battlefield, the worse it is for you. Now here's a Ponder. Couple of cards, Force of Will among them. Force of Will not very good when the opponent has a Teferi on the battlefield. Both players know that. Life totals right now in favor of Tomajko, 17-9. And he is looking at a Monastery Mentor among those cards in the Ponder. There's Arkham's Astrolabe. He'll keep that. All right, back to Edgar. What goodies does he have left in the grip? He might have a Jace of his own here. We'll have to see. Well, all right, Jaces. Let's duel. Is it time to go for a little brainstorm? It is, so... Both players now have active Chase the Mind Sculptor. They'll draw 3. Edgar will. He'll put 2 back here in just a moment. No fetch land on the battlefield, it looks like. At least not yet. And you're going to take a little look through the graveyard, see then, okay, your Pyroblasts are gone. It's good to know. One of them should have been exiled, so that's taken care of. 2 cards will go back. There's your fetch. Is it Oko time? Consul's Judgment, that'll work. Remember, Teferi's on the battlefield, so there's not any way for Tomajko to fight back. So now, the Planeswalker advantage, 2-0 in favor of Magalhaes. We head back over to Tomajko, who's drawn a copy of Monastery Mentor.
And it's so challenging for Tomajko to come back from this sort of position. His deck's not well equipped to just flood the battlefield and brawl with Planeswalkers. Monastery Mentor could potentially do that, but the Teferi, the Jace, and just Magalhaes' handful of cards can probably blunt that without much difficulty. A lot of Tomajko's sort of equity is built up in counterspells, and they don't work anymore.
Well, Magalhaes might not work anymore either, because now here's Teferi. He's going to fight back. It's Force of Negation. That is it. Wow, huge win there from Edgar Magalhaes, who did not miss a land drop. You mentioned that would be the key.
Yes.
And that appears to have been the key in that first game. Able to build a sizable mana advantage, win the big counter war over Teferi Time Raveler, able to take care of Oliver's Jace, have a Jace of his own, and win it from there. He's up a game.
And really just the fundamentals that he displayed there, really, really good. Before you're even talking about the tactics of the individual cards, there's just sort of a fluency in navigating these controlled mirrors, and Magalhaes was outstanding there. Tomajko's missing land drops. You're making yours. Tomajko has no dead cards in his deck because you have creatures, so his removal works, and his Tomajko's own creatures are threatening as well. So just sit back if he's going to be missing land drops, accrue a mana advantage, get some discards for your trouble. And Tomajko, what did he throw away? A Swords to Plowshares and a Monastery Mentor? Those are live cards.
Yeah.
It's not like he just was pitching away dead creature removal. Tomajko was eventually forced to play something because he was just going to continue to discard cards. Magalhaes then had a really brilliant sequence navigating through all of Tomajko's potential responses, played around Veil of Summer brilliantly, and eventually buried Tomajko before even really attacking him for any damage. Tomajko tapped out knowing that the writing was on the wall.
It would be a feather in his cap if he's able to win this particular matchup. It's a blue mirror, which Oliver appears to be more prepared for than Edgar is. So let's go to the sideboards. We'll start with Oliver Tomajko, and he's got a pretty varied one here. A Palace Jailer, a Gideon Ally of Zendikar, another copy or 2 of Pyroblast, along with Supreme Verdict, Surgical Extractions, Veil of Summer, 4 Rest in Peace, which aren't going to play much of a role here, a Blood Moon, a Wear Tear, and a Terminus. What do you like here? A lot of different options here for Oliver.
There's some good tools here for playing against a control deck generally. The Veil of Summer, the Gideon Ally of Zendikar, and the 2 Pyroblasts. Now, enough of what Tomajko is up to is non-blue, such that I don't know if you want to be overloaded on Red Blast, but still probably more than good enough to bring in go up to the full playset. I also don't mind the Palace Jailer in this matchup. It's innocuous, but becoming the Monarch in a control mirror match can be very good. And because it's white, it dodges some of the responses that Magalhaes might have.
Oh, we take a look at the other side of things here for Edgar. I imagine he's got a pretty varied sideboard as well, and he does. So his red cards aren't in the main, but you have to imagine that Volcanic Island, those 2 Pyroblasts, and that Elemental Blast, they're headed on in. He's also got a Palace Jailer, another copy of Snapcaster Mage, a Sylvan Library, a Return Nature, Supreme Verdict Surgical, a couple more copies of Veil, a couple more copies of Back to Basics as well. So this could get pretty ugly here after sideboard.
Yeah, the Red Blast, the Palace Jailer, the Snapcaster Mage, the Sylvan Library, the Veil of Summers, that's much of the same stuff. All good for battling these sort of fights. What's interesting now about these blue mirrors, the combination of Pyroblast / Red Elemental Blast and Veil of Summer means that exploring options that are not blue and not black are a lot more appealing than they used to be. And so you see Palace Jailer in both these player sideboards. It's not just for this kind of matchup, but becoming the Monarch's really good here. Sylvan Library in Magalhaes' sideboard is also just a concession to the fact that you want to be playing some good control cards that are not blue and not black. Sylvan Library is probably weaker than a couple of analogs you could find in some other colors, but dodging Red Elemental Blast, playing well against Veil of Summer, that's part of what's going on here too.
Well, you saw the options there, for both players, and they are plentiful to say the least. So it's time for them to shuffle up and get ready to rock and roll. And that's the player on your right, Edgar Magalhaes, who has won the first game of what may be many here between these two great players. 25 years old is the native of Burlington, Ontario, Canada. Opens played this year 19, top 8 7, wins still eluding him. All time he's got 10 open top 8s, but he doesn't have a W anywhere just yet. But it would be pretty impressive to say that his first win on the SCG Tour came at our biggest tournament, our Players' Championship, to close out 2019 and the decade as a whole. So, we get ready to watch the second game unfold. It's a good battle here between them.
Really well played there, that first game.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of players, I think, get in the habit of just casting their spells, but there's no harm in being patient in this kind of matchup. When your opponent starts missing land drops, just hang back. They're going to have to play into you eventually, or they're going to be discarding cards of value. And at that point, you get to exchange mana the way you want to and start resolving your own stuff.
We're underway. It's a Flooded Strand to start here for Tomajko. For Magalhaes, it'll be a Tundra and a Ponder. And one thing you noted during the pregame show, which I think is not that important here, but is worth noting, you can go get your non-basics in this matchup with basically no punishment because these players aren't rocking Wastelands.
No.
It's not about that here.
Right. And I think Magalhaes' mana base is one of each appropriate duel and then a bunch of basics. Tomajko's, I think, might be essentially the same. Mm-hmm. And it's, the mana requirements can be a little cumbersome sometimes. You want to have the option to get the duels when the matchup looks like this, but you want to limit your exposure to Wasteland as much as possible. So one of each of the appropriate dual lands alongside a ton of basics and Astrolabe, very common way for these decks to be constructed.
Edgar, very cool, calm, and collected in that chair right now. I think that's really, really worth noting body language-wise. Not saying that Oliver isn't, but Edgar is kind of back in his chair, just seems like he's kind of at home right now. Just remember, he just got through a marathon affair playing against Zan. You think maybe he's starting to get maybe a little bit mentally worn down as these 3 days have been a lot for all the players in this tournament, especially the ones making the finals, but he looks comfy.
Absolutely. And, this is not a new situation for here. Remember, Tomajko got to the finals here playing against Dylan Donegan, and he got trucked in the legacy portion of that.
Sure.
So losing this match here would be a little bit disappointing insofar as the matchup's not nearly as lopsided as the one that he played against Donegan, but he was able to come back and win that match in spite of losing the legacy rounds. Tomajko's a cool customer. I'm sure this is not phasing him very much.
Ice Fang Cold are going to come in, draw a card, and get on the attack. Doesn't attack for a ton, just 1 point of damage coming across, but it's better than nothing as we head back over to Tomajko. Oliver's going to play Misty Rainforest and just pass that turn back. So, we're going to go back Edgar's way in just a moment. No snow permanents right now for the Death Touch count. Not really all that relevant in this matchup, but that 1 point of damage in the card drawn, that's already taken place. So, the Codals come in for 2. There's a Flooded Strand, and now we're tapping some mana on the main phase, or are we? We are. Sylvan Library, a tough one to counter.
Yeah, I mean, this is you kind of want to play it now to prevent Hardcast Force of Will from being part of the equation, but this is, can't Spell Pierce it, can't Pyroblast it. It's not an easy card to answer, and it's not lights out in a control mirror match. It's not nearly as good as something like Jace the Mind Sculptor or Teferi Time Raveler, but this is still going to be a lot of extra cards. It's going to ensure that Magalhaes is making his land drops the whole way through. He's got a couple fetch lands rolled up alongside of it, so he has some selection to clear out the top of his deck. And it's not an easy card for Tomajko to counter or get off the battlefield once it's there.
And one thing also to note, too, as Oliver takes his 5th turn of the game, is that Magalhaes has some life to work with. So if he wants to clear the library, he has the ability to do that. You mentioned the fetches, and that's a pretty clean way for him to do so. But if he wants to get a little bit frisky by paying 4 or 8 life, he has the option to do that. So we head back over to Oliver for his 5th land. His 5th turn. We'll see if he does have a 5th land to play or not. A couple fetches, Snow-Covered Island, Volcanic Island, and Arkham's Astrolabe on the battlefield. He'll sacrifice a Flooded Strand. Oliver going to fall down to 17 after a couple chip shots from the Icefang Cold and the fetch land. That is a Savannah. This is a card worth fighting over. So here we go again. Teferi Time Raveler is where it starts. Edgar is going to start by sacrificing a Flooded Strand.
I'm starting to think in these sort of matchups, it's possible Teferi Time Raveler's better than even Jace the Mind Sculptor.
It might be.
Once it's on the battlefield, you can be so aggressive in doing your stuff and measuring against your opponent's possible range of responses. Jace has this, you brainstorm and it gets Council's Judgment or whatever some amount of the time. Not that that's bad, but it doesn't run away with it.
Yep.
This is, your opponent's so restricted. We saw last game, Magalhaes get this Teferi Time Raveler onto the battlefield, and then Tomajko's Veil of Summer was shut out of being able to be a response, to say nothing of the other counters in his hand. And Jace does not lock out everything the same way.
So now the question is Tomajko picking his fight at the right spot by leading off with a Jace here? Magalhaes had only had 2 mana available when the fight began. So here's a Pyroblast off of the Volcanic Island he searched for. This is a Veil of Summer in response to the Pyroblast.
Now remember, it's not a requirement that your opponent has cast a blue or black spell to cast Veil of Summer. Merely that's the way that you get to draw a card.
So Magalhaes is going to fight back. He'll sacrifice Misty. He's going to go get a Snow-Covered Forest. And so now it's time for a Veil of his own. And this is a card that you can't, for example, Pyroblast. So we are building ourselves a stack here, folks. This green card it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Not common for sideboard cards to get banned like this.
And draw a card when an opponent has cast a blue or black spell this turn, which Edgar would get the opportunity to do. Spells you control can't be countered this turn. You and permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and from black until end of turn.
Natural design. Could have seen this in alpha.
Which as
speaks to the fundamentals of the game engine.
Which as you said, is one of the best Magic sets of all time as far as aging and design is concerned.
Oh, absolute. Well, absolute masterpiece.
Force of Will is going to go after Veil of Summer.
Have you seen Raging River? Masterpiece.
I believe you. Look at this counter war. All over Teferi. So, Veil down. Pyroblast down. Teferi in. There's Raging River. We'll get to that in a little bit. For now, Teferi is at 4. It's on the battlefield. It was a game winner for Magalhaes last time. It might be a game winner for Tomajko this time.
Masterpiece.
Yeah. Elevator goes up onto Teferi. We're up to 5. Pass the turn back. Now, if Magalhaes just have some sort of Pyroblast type effect, don't forget Sylvan Library here, he might be able to cleanly get Jace off the battlefield.
But he can't fight a counter warp back. If Tomajko has any sort of response, it's probably going to be good.
Well, you see? Looky here.
Does someone want to become the Monarch?
Well, Oko, Brainstorm, Palace Jailer. Those are the cards that Magalhaes is looking at. Inability to cast Palace Jailer as things currently stand. Oko is obviously of interest because it's so powerful, and Brainstorm appears to be too. So Magalhaes is going to draw all of those cards. Jace the Mind Sculptor is looking to resolve. That's a powerful magic card. Pyroblast says no. Going to do it via the Arkham's Astrolabe. Tomajko's going to search up a land. You already see that he's tapped the Astrolabe. He'll do it with the snow-covered plains. You mentioned the inability to fight back given the Teferi that's on the battlefield. So Jace is going to be headed to the graveyard.
But Tomajko now down to 1 card in hand. Magalhaes with a full hand. And his sideboard, he gets to be a little bit more proactive. He has more stuff that he can just cast. It's still problematic from his side for Tomajko to have a Teferi Time Raveler, but it's not like he's rendered without any sort of functionality on his cards. That's in contrast to what we said out of Tomajko in game number 1. So much of what he does is read and respond. It's reactive. That a resolved Teferi Time Raveler on the other side is just, I mean, his deck doesn't really play that well in the face of that.
Teferi is going to bounce the Sylvan Library, draw a card. Will Tomajko picked up a copy of Misty Rainforest, which was ideal because he drew Brainstorm for the turn. So Snapcaster Mage, Ponder, and Snapcaster Mage are the draws off of that Brainstorm. 2 cards are going back, and he's got a fetch land to go along with it. So a timely set of draws there for Oliver Tomajko.
Although he still now is in a position where he has to do something about the Ice Fan Coil. I was actually thought that Tomajko might bounce his own Astrolabe to just keep the ball rolling that way.
Sure.
And now he's under some sort of pressure to get the 1/1 flyer off the battlefield.
Bouncing the Sylvan Library is interesting because you saw that Edgar missed the land drop last turn, even though he drew all of those cards at the library.
Yep.
So that forces Edgar, if he wants to find a 5th mana source, to peel it off of the top, assuming that matters.
Yeah, no, I mean, and respending the 2 mana and all that, there's certainly reasons to bounce the Sylvan Library, but I thought Tomajko is so starved on cards right now. I mean, Magalhaes has a stocked hand, and Tomajko's kind of down to the felt, that I thought he might want to peel up another cantrip, but he might be putting a premium, as you mentioned, on Magalhaes missing yet another land drop. The Sylvan Library gives Magalhaes 3 looks at it, as opposed to just 1 off the top.
And Oliver, I will say this, he is catching up very, very quickly here. That Brainstorm was quite good. Snapcasters are in that Brainstorm. And now he's just going to pass the turn back. So we go back over to Edgar now, who's got a Sylvan Library, a Palace Jailer, Brainstorm, and a whole bunch more in hand. He's going to start with the Coldle going after the Jace. Oliver is going to fight back. He has a Snapcaster Mage, and this will allow him to cast a Pyroblast there. Given to Teferi on the battlefield, nothing that Edgar can do to respond to that. But the window's open now.
But still not all doom and gloom from Magalhaes' perspective. He's still got a totally stocked hand. Although now the Snapcaster Mage on Tomajko's side might take the wind out of the sails a little bit on his ability to leverage the Sylvan Library. He's down to 9 already. I know it's not like Tomajko's done much in the way of attacking, but just from fetch lands and peeling off 8 damage from the first Sylvan Library, Magalhaes is fairly low. So it's going to be hard for him to gas back up via the Sylvan Library.
I think your assessment of Teferi in this matchup was very, very smart, insofar as it might be more important than Oko, than Jace, than any of that stuff, because once that thing's on the battlefield, it changes the way that you can read and respond to anything that's going on, and these Legacy decks play so well with their instants, the inability to do that, like having to cast a Brainstorm right now, you have no choice. It's very notable.
Yeah, and it just increases the ceiling on so many of your cards and your draws. Tomajko right now, if he draws a Jace the Mind Sculptor, just put it on the battlefield, you know, and Magalhaes, there's no way to counter it. Maybe he can respond on his own turn, but you at least get a Brainstorm for your trouble. And the same is true for, you know, Monastery Mentor, much the same thing. You can play it and do a little bit on your turn, as long as that Time Raveler stays on the battlefield. If it leaves, then you're playing 3 cards in hand against Magalhaes' 7, and almost no matter what Magalhaes' hand is, you're in some trouble.
Prismatic Vista appears to be a pretty big find there from Magalhaes. Was missing a 5th mana source and a fetch land to go along with the Brainstorm is pretty darn nice. So, Brainstorm doing what Brainstorm does, which is be the best card in Legacy, helping to smooth things out here for both players. Edgar's going to sacrifice that Prismatic Vista. It's a snow-covered plains for him. Can he get Teferi off of the battlefield is the question. Struggling thus far. Four mana. Palace Jailer. Okay. Give me that Snapcaster Mage. And Edgar is the Monarch. Alright, I mean, hey. Can't check.
Remember, this is not Oblivion Ring. It's a little bit tricky.
Yes, it is.
Tomajko has to become the Monarch. An ability that is not denoted via reminder text.
That's
It
right.
is just assumed you know what that means.
That's right. That's right.
Which I do not.
In order to become the Monarch, you have to deal your opponent damage. That's how you get it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Here's a Gideon.
Will you look at that?
Yeah.
Now Tomajko could become the Monarch.
Well, he's got to deal him damage. So right now, Edgar's still the Monarch. Thank you
Yeah,
very
well,
much.
I thought he might tune up the band with Gideon.
It doesn't have haste.
Oh, you still got to hang.
He's
That's
still-
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's
You
got
got
a summoning sick.
Excuse me.
Easy there, Maniac.
Excuse me.
I know my white cards. Okay. If Gideon had haste, it would have been even more busted in Standard. Swords that. Can he do it? Can he kill Teferi?
Yeah, he's only had to be up like 3 times as many cards.
Hiya!
Oh, sorry. So close.
Tried so hard, got so far. I think someone else might be coming to the Monarch here soon. There is an island. I think Snapcaster Mage is going to come hang out for a moment.
This is actually pretty great, though. I mean, there is a game being played on the battlefield.
Absolutely, there is. No, this is a great game of Legacy right here.
Tomajko on empty.
Still the Monarch, by the way.
Yes.
That doesn't change. Even though Palace Jailer's dead, no. The sub-game just happens still. All right, Astrolabe. Let's peel one. Now, in my estimation, the bigger problem is that Gideon. No longer is it Jace. Okay, Kodal, let's talk about it. Draw a card. Land. Astrolabe, what is this? Kodal, okay. Draw. Got to play him now, obviously, because of the Jace. Monarch, draw. Well, Edgar is gassed up. And Oliver has no cards. Even after that big brainstorm and getting Gideon on the battlefield, he's on E.
And once Magalhaes, if and when he can get Teferi Time Raveler off of the battlefield, then he can use Source of Plowshares as an answer to Gideon Ally of Zendikar, and then Tomajko he's so far down on cards. That's pretty much the whole game.
Magalhaes moseying along. Keep in mind, Edgar is at 8, doesn't have a ton of life to work with. Not like he can take a ton of Gideon hits here. Doesn't even want to get hit because he wants to remain the Monarch. So, where do we start now? We're going to go to Snappy. Snappy on Pyroblast. Bang. Is it going to work? Nope. Force Negation says nope. Big top deck there from Tomajko. What comes next here for Edgar? 3 mana. Is it another Teferi, perhaps? Oko. Okay, so we turn something. Yeah.
All right, that's all over.
Yeah, I think so now.
It's all over.
That Teferi's down. Finally. I'll tell you what, that Teferi was warping the entire game around it.
And now it's 7 cards to 0.
That is going to do it. Edgar Magalhaes finally picks up his first win in Legacy.
Woohoo!
It took him till the finals of this tournament, but he's on the board at the right time. Bant Snow defeats 4-color Mentor 2 games to 0. 2 expertly played games by the Canadian, the member of Team Lotus Box. And now we take a short break here from the Star City Game Center. When we come back, we let you know if Oliver picks play or draw or the format, and if he doesn't pick the format, what Edgar selects, just after this. Welcome back, everybody. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, StarCityGames.com Players Championship, our final round of 2019, our final round of the decade here between Oliver Tomajko and Edgar Magalhaes. Magalhaes won the Legacy matchup. So Oliver said, you know what? I'm going to play first again. And Edgar said, fine. Let's play some Urza. Let's play some Modern. Let's start with Oliver Tomajko. He's playing Bant Urza. He's got the white splash here, Patrick. We're used to a lot of these elements, and I know that with the matches we covered earlier, a lot of this weekend we've covered Urza doing its thing against Devoted Devastation, and you've wanted them to find hands that interact with Devoted Druid, a little bit slower, more interactive. How do you feel about that plan in an Urza mirror?
No, just proactive, brute force it. You got spell quality to cover yourself a little bit. Very good in the matchup. So many of the marquee cards cost 3 or 4, like Oko or Urza. And, yeah, pedal to the metal, be as fast as possible. set up Cryptic Command lock after developing your battlefield. Don't mess around.
Yeah, some straightforward stuff here, I think. Turn 1 Emery's, turn 2 Urzas if you can do it. Mock Straws. Metallic Rebuke, Cryptic Command, they'll play a role in things, but Spellqueller's an ace in the hole in this matchup, and so is Oko, so get prepared to watch that card here in just a bit. For Edgar Magalhaes, she'll be on the draw here in game number 1. He's playing Sultai Urza, which means he's got some black elements as opposed to the white ones. So you see the Thoughtseizes, you see the Assassin's Trophies, you see the other cards that you're very much used to there. Emery, Gilded Goose, Urza, Oko, Cryptic, Metallic Rebuke, obviously. Numbers are different. Idea's still the same. And that Aether Spellbomb, I'm a little bit curious about what the deal is with that, but it does work pretty well with Emery, though I'm not sure how important that will be in this particular matchup.
Well, I think the Aether Spellbomb is you have a little bit of wiggle room for one of that cycles that has a high ceiling in certain spots. Witching Well is kind of the analog to that, I suppose, in Tomajko's deck, where, if you draw it, it's whatever. It's fine. Cycle it or scry or whatever. And it really can expand the range of what Emery can do in some games that go on for a really long time. Sometimes this deck really runs out of gas, and Witching Well is a really powerful thing to be able to loop every single turn. It doesn't come up all the time, but it doesn't have to come up that frequently for it to be worth 1 slot on the deck. Aether Spellbomb can get you out of some corner case scenarios, and again, in some edge cases, some small percentage of the time, it alongside Emery makes it really problematic for your opponent to execute their game plan.
Modern is the name of the game now, and if we do see Oliver tie this up, that means we move to Standard, and I think that's part of the reason that Edgar selected Modern here is because Oliver's playing Simic Flash, Edgar is, of course, playing Jund Sacrifice, and I think Edgar would prefer to be on the play for the Standard portion if we get there.
Definitely, and Donegan made the same call against Tomajko in their top 4 match. I'm actually surprised that more of these Urza decks don't do something like 1 Witching Well along with 1 Aether Spellbomb. Like, there is the room for, if a card cycles and has a low opportunity cost, but has some amount of the time be very powerful alongside with Emery Recursion, feels like that's a dimension you want. Sometimes the Emerys are a little bit modest. You get in these long games where it's not doing a whole lot.
Yeah.
But unsummon every turn or draw 2 every single turn plus scry 2, that's something.
Yeah, it's not so bad. Well, these players are going to take a look at their opening hands. It's an Urza mirror here, folks. Team Lotus Box helped put Urza on the map in a very big way. That SCG Open in Atlanta a little bit earlier this year where they crushed that thing. They didn't win it, but they did everything but putting 4 players into the top 8 with Simic Urza, and that deck is incredibly powerful. Sultai Urza is the name of the game here for Magalhaes. For Tomajko, he's got that White Splash for those Spellquellers, and some sideboard cards that I'm sure we'll get to after game number 1. For now, it's Misty Rainforest once again in both of our matches thus far. A snow-covered forest is where Tomajko will begin things. And perhaps it's time to go to the lab. I mean, the lab, but indeed, it will be a Gilded Goose with a food token, and we'll pass it back over to Edgar Magalhaes, 1 match away from becoming your player's champion. That is a Mox Opal. This is a Mishra's Bauble. What comes next here? Polluted Delta. I'm just going to pass the turn back. So this is bluffing Metallic Rebuke right now. There's the Astrolabe. That's going to resolve. Michael will draw a card. Picked up a copy of Oko. Oko more powerful here in Modern than it is in Legacy. No slouch in Legacy either, of course, as you saw in the hands of Magalhaes last round. But it is a dominant card in this particular format, as there's a Mox Opal that'll resolve as well. So Metalcraft is on. Tomajko has access to 2 mana, 1 from the Mox, 1 from the Goose, eating a food. Well, where does he go from here? He just passes the turn back over to Magalhaes, so these Urza decks are mighty, mighty powerful, but nothing too crazy just yet.
There are a handful of cards that matter if they resolve, and the rest of the deck is just infrastructure for it. So both of these players are going to be, everything they're thinking about right now is around Urza, Oko, and to a lesser extent, Emery. How do I get mine on the battlefield? How do I prevent my opponent from resolving one?
And there's a snow-covered island. And engineered explosives.
This is for one. Very good in this spot.
Mm-hmm.
Getting Gilded Goose is quite the prize. And even that Astrolabe is contributing to the Metalcraft for the Opal.
So if there's no Metallic Rebuke here, which there is not, now you wonder if Edgar's got the land to blow this thing up, because now Metalcraft is online as well. There is your land. Kaboom! Goes the explosives. Pass the turn back. Tomajko has a land, and he has a Mox alongside an artifact. So it's not like it's that hard to turn the Mox back on.
But even if it costs 1 mana for him to get it back up, then he doesn't have anything good to do with the 2 mana left over.
Mm-hmm. There's Engineer Explosives for 0. This, we're going to see an Oko right
Bow,
now.
bow, 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 bow.
Yeah, that's a nice little play there from Tomajko. Not sure if he drew the explosives or not, but it's on the battlefield. Make a food, pass the turn back, and no mana does not appear to be an issue any longer. So, Magalhaes might be thinking about cracking that bauble. Take a look at either his deck or Tomajko's, because now he is under the gun because Oko's on the battlefield. We'll head back over to Edgar now, though. He won't crack that bauble. It's going to be an Astrolabe. That'll resolve. Draw a card. That was good explosives last turn, but not good enough to slow down Tomajko's development.
Yeah, Magalhaes is really hoping to avoid 0 mana artifact along with land plus Oko. That's the one thing that punishes him for that line quite a bit. I think probably still a good risk to take, but now in some trouble.
Emery will come down. Urza's plural headed to the graveyard along with the bauble and Assassin's Trophy. Breeding Pool is going to enter the battlefield untapped. Still repping Metallic Rebuke. And Magalhaes will pass the turn back. Does Tomajko want to turn that Emery into an Elk, so that it can't do much of anything? Also worth noting that Tomajko has the ability to blow up and engineer explosives. If he did that, he'd blow up all his food in Mox Opal, and he'd kill Edgar's Mox Opal and Mishra's Bauble if he didn't use it, so that doesn't seem like that appealing of a play. So for now, Tomajko will survey the battlefield. Take a long look at his hand and try to figure out how to move forward on this turn with an active Oko. There's a polluted Delta.
Yeah, the Oko's kind of in a weird position right now because you don't exactly want to just turn Emery into an Elk, and now your Oko's getting threatened and it's a little obnoxious, but you do want to do something about the Emery.
Well, how about we swap? How's the swap sound there, bud?
Swap sounds good.
I give you food, I get your Emery. What a deal. Okay. Well, that's that. And pass it back. Oliver representing Metallic Rebuke and Cryptic Command and Spell Queller right now. That's a lot. I'll tell you what, as we head back over to Edgar, Magalhaes, she's got to figure out how to work through all of this stuff now.
And with Tomajko being light on resources, even being able to Emery for the Astrolabe once could be bad news.
Well, the Spell Bomb.
Will you look at that? Don't have to come up that much for it to be worth one slot in the deck.
That's true. Every slot matters when you're building a deck. Here we go. Bounce the Emery. I'd like it back. Okay. Boy, that's annoying. And do you try to recast it now? Looks like he wants to do it via the Mox. How about an Emery? Edgar looks locked in right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing some really good Magic. Not saying Oliver isn't, but Edgar looks locked in.
Yeah, he has been running circles around the tricks and responses that Tomajko has had in the Legacy rounds. And now here, you know, again, the downside was really bad on the play that happened for Magalhaes a couple turns ago, opening himself up to that Oko, but he's playing through it right now.
Metallic Rubik's going to take care of the Emery. I'm not going to fight over that because Oliver does have 3 mana available for another Rebuke or a Spell Queller. Remember, we are talking about open deck lists now. These players know exactly what each other's playing and have been for a couple of days. So the fact that Oliver has access to Spell Queller mana, not going to surprise Edgar or you at home. So no movement there to try to force through that Emery. So Tomajko, what's he want to do? He wants to blow up engineered explosives. Okay, yep, but nope. He'll sacrifice the fetch first. You blow up EE. If you're Oliver, you lose your own Mox and your food token. You blow up Edgar's Mox and Bobble and his food token. Okay. That's what that would be. As he's going to search up a Hallowed Fountain and have that enter the battlefield tapped first. So does he want to blow up the EE or not? Engineer Explosive is an incredibly powerful card, but not going to be used just yet. Sunburst currently equaling 0.
Yeah, he just gets a lot of lines are taken away from Magalhaes in the long term should he resolve his own Oko if Tomajko has an Engineer Explosives at the ready. So even if it doesn't look like much, there's no reason to rush to get rid of it.
Alright, Witching Well here for Tomajko. That'll allow him to scry too. You can crack that to draw a couple of cards as well, and then you can really smooth out your draws if you've got an Emery going, which Tomajko currently does not. Almost did, given the old swapperoo we saw with Oko a couple turns ago. And there you do see the Witching Well. Nice little one-of that this deck is able to play, as now a food token has been turned into an Elk, and Tomajko's going to hold steady. Not going to be attacking with that food token, so time for Edgar to finally use that Bobble. Take a look at Oliver's top card. Draw for the Bobble, draw for the turn, and we head back over to our Sultai Urza player. As around and around we go. Breeding Pool untapped. 3 mana. Is this an attempt to resolve an Oko? Yep. In there. Both players have the powerful Planeswalker now. Loyalty advantage to Magalhaes right now. Elk advantage currently to Tomajko.
Yeah, having loyalty advantage plus a little bit of a front foot here is good for Magalhaes. Tomajko can still block for at least a turn. The Engineer Explosives makes it more complicated too.
Alright, Mox. You're an Elk. Let's go. Let's trade. Alright. Still has Rebuke available. At least for now. 4 Witching Well. Draw 2. 1, 2. Okay. And draw for the turn as well here for Tomajko. Remember, he thought about blowing up that Engineer Explosive a little bit earlier, slowed himself down. If he were to blow it up now, he'd lose his own Mox, but he'd kill a food token. That's it, so not the best use of Engineered Explosives at the moment. But one thing it could do is shut off Metallic Rebuke, and there may be some sincere interest in that. The Improvise on Rebuke would have Magalhaes tap that food token, as well as that Astrolabe, and pay the blue with the breeding pool.
Depends if he's trying to push something through. I mean, that's a pretty big expenditure of resources. He has drawn an Urza for the turn, which is, I mean, if any card's going to make you go down that road, it's that one.
Mm-hmm. Emery, with 3 mana available. So, 4 cards headed to the graveyard. Cryptic Command, Gilded Goose, Metallic Rebuke, and a land. See you later. Alright, Mox Online. We're going beatdowns. It takes some real skill to navigate these type of games.
Oh yeah, well, I mean,
Such a mess.
there is a lot of the toughest matches in Magic to play are where there's a blend of a lot of decisions on the battlefield and then fluidity in terms of like what's your position in the matchup, what's your game plan overall, what are the cards that I'm most scared of my opponent drawing, what I'm trying to maximize my chances of finding, and the Urza matchups have a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. They really, really do.
Even just navigating games involving Oko at a certain skill level, that's really hard to do.
Yep.
And that's just one piece among many.
All right, Astrolabe in. Can't engineer explosives that for 0. So now it's a decision of Emery, you want to jump in front of this? Had he turned his food token into an elk, engineer explosives could have blown it up. So Emery's got to jump in front. Okay. Flooded Strand. Mox. Do we make that into an... Well, we already made something into an elk, so we can't do it again.
Right. Right now, Magalhaes is Oko. The shields are down. There are no blockers, 3 loyalty against an elk.
Magalhaes with a couple of cards in hand. Looks like 2. Don't have a great feel for what they are, though. They've both been bluffing a lot of different things at various points in this game. Here comes Spell Queller. Tomajko unsure of himself. Okay, he's going to go to Spell Queller. Rebuke. Okay. So Mox is going to resolve. No follow-up, though, so now we just go back over to Tomajko. Oko, up to 4. EE, looking for more. Beatdowns. Got there.
Thank God.
It's like it's the hardest thing to do in the world is to kill that stupid card. Here is an Urza. Will it resolve? It looks like it does. And this one appears to be slipping away from Edgar now. Urza's on the battlefield. Oko, the construct, all of it.
Yeah, he is locked out of combat now. Oko, unassailable. Behind on the battlefield, behind on cards.
Mm-hmm. It can be a lot trying to get through Oko. As you just witnessed over the past handful of turns, the game warps itself around it. And now you have to ask yourself, if you're Edgar, can you even fight through this battlefield? You're so far behind. I think he might be asking himself that question right now. What do my draws look like to get back into this thing? He'll take a draw step. Oliver's played a great game too. Really has.
Very skillful navigation here.
Mm-hmm.
So many dimensions of these games.
Watergrave's going to enter the battlefield tapped. Edgar's going to pass the turn back over to Oliver. Oliver will untap all those permanents. He's drawn a card. He has an engineer explosives in hand, among other options. Oko on 4 could go all the way up to 6 if he'd like it to. We know what Urza can do, even though there's just one artifact on the battlefield, the construct itself. So here come the Elk tokens. And Elks will trade. 3 damage is going to get through. Magalhaes is going to fall down to 12. Oh, plus, make a food token. 5. Spin the wheel. See what we find. Top card. Seen worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the best for Battlefield 4, but usually when a crit command's not that its best, it's because your opponent's completely dead.
He's going to bounce Urza, draw a card.
Yeah, because...
Make another construct then?
Right, you got it. You got it.
No, I'm just a little surprised. It's an expensive card to try to resolve, that's all.
Yeah, but Magalhaes got nothing. This dude got nothing.
Yeah.
And his draw says cryptic, who cares?
Yeah, sure.
Get next turn.
Yeah. Edgar analyzing the battlefield. See where we go from here. Oliver has come all the way back in what has been a very, very complicated, confusing, but incredibly fun game. Goes to Oliver Tomajko, as Magalhaes will concede the game. Bant Urza up a game over Sultai Urza. We said we're going to be here a while. Mm-hmm. We hope you're sticking and staying with us, as we got to crown ourselves a champion.
We've entered hour 2.
We're in hour 2?
We're at hour 2.
You sure?
Clock's rolled over.
That means we could just be an hour in. Oh, no, I got it. I'm sorry.
We are past 1 hour.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, I know. It was... My phrasing was not the most clear.
That's all right. That's all right. That's on
1
me.
hour and change into this match.
That's on me. It's okay. How about the sideboard?
Let's talk about it.
Let's go to Edgar, baby. There it is, Robbo. 3 Dampening Sphere, a Dark Blast, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Drown in the Lock, 2 Fatal Push, 3 Veil of Summer, still legal in this format, and 2 Nile Spellbound. What the heck do you want to do here, Urza Master?
Interested in the Veil. Interested in Drown in the Lock. Could maybe be talked into Disdainful Stroke, but probably not. There you have it.
Yeah.
I'm interested in cards that can counter Oko. Both strategically and aesthetically.
2 Ashiok's, 1 Teferi, 4 Damping Spheres, 4 Paths, 2 Needles, 2 Veils.
Teferi, Veil seem like the best.
Turn it into Legacy matchup.
Exactly.
Basically, yeah.
Same cards.
Yeah, it really
All
is.
the same cards.
A lot of people said these Urza decks feel like...
2019 going out with a bang, I'll tell you what.
It sure
as far
is.
as the new cards go.
They didn't mess around with Throne of Eldraine and Modern Horizons? Yeah. They didn't mess around with
No. There's a lot of substance here.
They decided to pump up the jam.
Yeah.
And they did. Oh, did they ever. And hey, even Core Set 2020, that's where Veil came from. Mm-hmm. So... There's your sideboard options there for both players. Game number 2. They're working on it. They're taking a look at sideboards. They're figuring out how they want to reconfigure their deck. If you are just joining us, it's Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan here in the booth. We're at the StarCityGames.com Players Championship. Our final match of the year. Hashtag SCG Tour. Excuse me, at SCG Tour. Hashtag SCGPC. You know what they can do?
Join the conversation.
Yeah, you can.
Talk about it on social media.
Mm-hmm. Where everything is fun and friendly, and you can talk about the players who made some money here this weekend, folks.
Rank them. Well, look, we're going to rank them.
We're going to rank them for you. 16th place is Abe Corrigan. 15th is Chris Barone. 14th is Harlan Fear. 13th is Joe Lissette. They did not make day number 2 of competition, but the rest of our fine folks here did. In 12th There's young Jonathan Hobbs, who had a great year on the SCG Tour, as did Dominic Harvey, who came in 11th. Jeremy Bertarioni, a member of Team Lotus Box, came in 10th. And there you see Drake Sasser. He came in 9th. $1,500 goes to Matt Dilks for his 8th place finish. Collins Mullen finished in 7th. He'll also walk out of here $1,500. Then you see Zach Allen, the Michigan native member of Team RIW, with $2,000. He walked out of here in 6th. In 5th, it was our Season 1 Invitational champion, Colin Roundtree. Dylan Donegan, one of our most seasoned players in this tournament, finished in 4th with $3,500. Our SCG Tour Player of the Year, Zan Saeed, finished in 3rd. Also walked out of here with $3,500, and we got to figure out who number 1 and 2 are going to be. They're playing for quite a bit of change right now. Lead currently for Magalhaes in matches. Game lead in this match goes to Oliver Tomajko after winning game number 1. A lot of money on the line. These players have fought all year just for this. And someone, again, is walking out of here with that $20,000. And that's StarCityGames.com Players Championship title belt.
Going to cut a promo.
What's that?
They're going to cut a promo.
I hope so. Oliver has not lacked any confidence here this weekend, so he strikes me as the type who could cut a promo. The 19-year-old member of Team Mythico Studios has the smartest, coolest, and most awesome little brother in the world. Maybe his brother will play with his title belt like I used to do with my action figures, my brother's action figures.
I had him.
Just giving suplexes to Macho Man and Hulk Hogan, everybody else. He played in 20 Opens this year, top 8 at 5 and won one of them. 7 top 8s all time with 2 wins for the 19-year-old. And if he keeps at this whole Magic thing, it's going to be a lot more open top 8s and a lot more top 8s in general for Oliver Tomajko.
Full resume already.
He's a good one. And he plays Legacy in these older formats just as well as he plays Standard, which is the newest one. You'd think the younger players would know the new formats, but not the old ones that well. I'd say he knows them all. Nick Miller's got the belt. He's on Twitter. He's getting a little wild, thinking about walking out of here with it.
Mm-hmm.
I see him. Miller, the belt's got to stay, bud.
Nick Miller, great. Would be a great heel manager.
Easy. He'll do the talking for you. He also slide you the weapon, I think, really well.
Yes.
Yeah. Give him a tennis racket like Jim Cornette. Give some beatdowns with that thing. We're underway. It's a snow-covered island into an Arkham's astrolabe. Here for Edgar Magalhaes. We're over to Oliver Tomajko. Breeding pool's untapped. Gilded Goose gives him a little bit of acceleration. There is your food token. We're going over to Edgar. Unless Oliver... No, it's Edgar's turn. He's untapped his land already. He's just trying to figure out what he wants to do. I didn't know if Oliver was thinking about Bobble or Mox or any of that nonsense. This is a fatal push.
Cool.
I think that's a good idea. Get that goose out of here.
Every single time one of these players is able to remove one of the opposing permanents from the battlefield, I just couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
So way to go. Look at that.
Round of applause. The Emery. You're going to have to kill that one now, too, probably. Let's take a look here. Island, Delta, Flooded Strand. 4 lands go to the graveyard. Magalhaes will draw. There is a Misty Rainforest. Is it time for everyone's favorite planeswalker? Be a great time for it. Breeding pool untapped.
Suspicious.
Oh, what could it be?
Well, why would he get a breeding pool on tap when he could fix the man with the astrolabe? Unless... Oh!
Well, take that. Take that, tough guy. The goose is loose. 2. Okay, another goose. What do we know? He's representing Metallic Rebuke right now. I'll give him that. Island 2 food tokens. Tap him, counter the next thing. That is a Mishra's Bobble. That gives you a little something to do with the Emery. So, take a look at his top card, Will Tomajko. Top card goes back on top after taking a little look-ski-poo. Now remember, Tomajko did mill over quite a few lands there with the Emery, so that might mean he's without another land. Who knows? But he has one. There's a Flooded Strand. Sacrifice that. He'll fall a little lower, down to 15. He'll get himself a Hollowed Fountain. So Spell Queller online now. Remember, that's what he's splashing white for, mostly. Bobble going to come back, thanks to the Emery. He'll crack it now. Take a look at Magalhaes' top card. Pass the turn back. 2 Bobble triggers. Let's see if he remembers them both. 1. I think he got them both. We're going back to Edgar. He's looking to tie this matchup up, though. I will say this. He hadn't won a match in Legacy. Got the job done there. He has not lost a match in Standard. Makes you wonder how he feels about that. If he can get back there. Though I'm sure he'd prefer to get it done right now. This is an Oko. In there. 4 loyalty is where the fun begins.
Fun.
Yeah, that's the word I used. You heard me.
Okay.
Say what I mean what I say.
Well, it's actually not. It's a little bit more probable here where it's possible that this might end up with someone attacking someone else. But I wouldn't get my hopes up.
Edgar's going to try to turn that Emery into an elk. That'll resolve. We're going in for 3. Goose is going to block right away. The goal now is to
Yeah.
keep that Oko alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lean into its unassailability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is an Arkham's Astrolabe. Next is a forest of the snow-covered variety. How about a goose? It appears to be loose. Another food. Pass it back. Magalhaes will untap. Let's draw a card. Snow-covered island. Elevator going up. Beat downs anyone? Or do we hang back? And protect our Oko no Joko.
Yeah, it's probably more powerful to block.
There you go.
While Tomajko doesn't have an Oko because your position just gets harder to. I don't,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Let it out. Let it out, big guy.
Because Magalhaes' position only gets stronger as time goes on.
Yes.
Having 1 Oko versus 0. The incentive is for him to hold back on defense because he is going to add more permanents to the battlefield and be in a position to add more blockers to further protect the Oko or to be in a position to respond as fast as possible should Tomajko resolve an Oko of his own.
I knew you'd get there.
Yeah, I just need to rev the engine up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That coffee cup's not empty. Yeah, Rob can get you another cup. Intern Rob's got you like 6 cups of coffee this weekend.
Yeah. Let me shake this. All right, Rob, we're at 1442 right now.
Yeah, we sure are.
Hit me up at 35. That's about my line. Call it 35.
About 20 minutes from now. Here's an attempt.
Yeah.
Here's an attempt to resolve an Urza. Go for it.
Here's the thing. Rob has been cashing in some chips on social media, talking about the coffee runs, getting coffee for me, which is great.
Building some clout.
But now he's priced in because if he ever refuses, I will unleash my followers on him.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Like a great Twitter haul would.
Right.
Like a great Twitter haul would. That's good.
Yeah. Rob, you're not being threatened. You're being made aware.
There is a fatal push with the trigger on the stack. Sacrifice a food token to turn on the revolt. Look at all of the synergies. That means that Urza has resolved, but the construct isn't in just yet.
Right.
And what that also might mean is that Magalhaes' hand might be weak. Now remember, because Urza's on the battlefield, those artifacts, those 2 food tokens, Astrolabe.
Oh, those are Mock Sapphires.
Yeah, they can tap for blue mana, and now the goose is gonna sack the goose. We're gonna make a food. Okay. Okay. Didn't know if we were gonna get a little techie with Cryptic Command or something else, but just gonna make a food. All right, Elks will trade.
Yeah, you see, Magalhaes wants to block in this spot.
Yep.
Because while he has an Oko and his opponent does not, his position gets stronger over time. He can add loyalty to the Oko, giving in options to perhaps swap and keep the Oko around should Tomajko do something threatening, or just continue to make Oko less and less assailable as time goes on. So I like the block there. I like blocking.
Sullivan approved. Big deal. The thing that Magalhaes has been missing here is Urza.
Just anything.
Yeah, just some way to break it
anything
open.
powerful at all. He's got all of his eggs in the Yoko basket right now.
He
The
sure
rest of his
does.
draws has been a couple reactive cards and some mana. Oko could be good enough to carry the day here. Although now we're at a point where the construct
Pretty big.
bigger than an elk.
Delta's the land. Pass the turn back. I just think Edgar's hand's pretty weak.
Yeah,
Don't
he's
do anything.
just flooding out.
I mean, he may have Cryptic Command in hand, but past that, he just doesn't have much going on. It's a lot of lands on the battlefield, you mentioned, just kind of flooding out. Beatdowns. Oko down to 4. Think we might attempt an Urza again here. Yes. Will it resolve? Oh, Magalhaes gonna take a look at the graveyard. He's already down a game. If this thing resolves, that might just be the match. You can tell he's not thrilled about it. But he's got to do something here to fight back. Assassin's Trophy with the trigger on the stack. That's Edgar's last card in hand.
Yeah, I mean, the removal's been okay for Magalhaes, but he just hasn't drawn enough substance to go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a weird looking... Oh, no! Oh, the humanity.
Yeah. Get veiled.
Mm-hmm.
I think we might spin the wheel now on the Urza too. Yep. Yep. Yeah, give it a good shuffle.
Give it a wash.
Yeah, well.
Whatever. That's an attacker.
It is an attacker.
I'll take it.
Goose will sacrifice a food token. Emery. Cryptic's in the bin now, in case Mystic Sanctuary works itself into the equation. Ah, interesting. A fetch land. With multiple islands on the battlefield. This is a deck of Magic cards, I'll tell you what.
2019, hell of a year. I'll tell you what. Hell of a year.
They printed some Magic cards.
Yeah, some sets came out.
Yeah.
Don't know if you heard about them.
Edgar's going to draw.
A couple impactful cards.
Astrolabe, draw. Well, raise the eyebrows a little.
He made the face of someone looking to play on.
I mean, it better be Urza. All right, that's a start. There you go. Construct. Oko still on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. That it is.
He empty-handed, but he had to start somewhere. He started here. They did make some cards, though, didn't they?
Oh, they sure did.
Yeah.
Some of them rare or mythic.
Yes. Yes.
It's 2 rarities of the 4.
Tomajko going to organize his battlefield here before getting ready for his next turn. Is Magalhaes trying to figure out what he can do. What's Urza got to hit on the spin in order to win? We've seen him come back from some pretty incredible spots. This one may be the most difficult. Alright, you've been elked, Urza. Okay. Now we pass. Over to Tomajko, who's got a couple of elks, a spell queller, a construct that appears to be a 4/4 but can grow to be so much more.
Mm-hmm.
On the upkeep, Tomajko is going to sacrifice his Scalding Tarn, get himself a Mystic Sanctuary. Sanctuary is going to enter the battlefield untapped. Trigger, let's put a little something on top. Maybe our old pal Cryptic Command?
I like that choice.
Yeah. Nice. That's an
Yeah, I
oldie.
vote for Cryptic Command.
That's an oldie. Yeah. It's an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah.
So you could play this deck.
Yeah.
You get how it works. Couple decision points.
Reclaim. Quite the effect to put on an island.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
Not bad. A lot you can do with that.
Emery is thinking about going active. Yep. Bong.
Mm-hmm.
The bubble. The land. That'll improve your draw step.
It's also an artifact. +1/+1 for the construct.
Look how smart you are. Beatdowns anyone? Hello, Oko. Yes. Oko no Joko. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Don't stress too much.
13.
A pretty safe attack with Cryptic Command in hand.
I mean, there's not a lot that can go wrong. You're not wrong.
You know, there's just a lot of ways this goes right. Tomajko would prefer not to use it here, so he uses the bounce mode to pick up his Mystic Sanctuary, but we'll see how Magalhaes blocks first.
Sure.
We'll see how that looks.
I think it's also worth trying to figure out if he could deal lethal or not, but I don't think that he can.
No, not that. This turn, too ambitious, and Magalhaes can chump block and such. Might as well get the Oko off the battlefield. Magalhaes has no cards in hand. Once that goes away, you know, it's not too hard to clean up the remainder.
Interestingly enough, this construct's a 4/4 for Magalhaes. Construct itself, food to Astrolabes. Ours is a 1/4 into a 3/3. And then we've got Tomajko's construct, which is a big. So Edgar's going to lose his goose. All right. Oko's down to 3. Oddly, Edgar is keeping up enough to be able to activate Urza at instant speed to maybe spike some sort of counterspell.
Another reason for Tomajko to sort of play it a little bit passive in combat there, the ceiling on doing something and then Magalhaes spinning Urza into something really good and reactive. Just no reason to risk it.
Oh, we ain't going to make a move. We're just going to draw a card if we're Edgar. How do we use Oko next? Can turn a food into an elk. Can do the same thing with the Astrolabes. Means your construct gets a little bit smaller.
I think Edgar having an extra 3/3 on defense is probably better than turning any of Tomajko's permanents into an elk.
5. Urza spins. Yep. Alright, I don't know what the best hit is, but we're going to find out soon enough. Spin to win. Hi-ya! Not quite. Flooded Strand. Not the best there for Magalhaes. Oko. Says Emery, you're a food. Excuse me, you're an elk now. Remember, Tomajko does have that cryptic command in hand. There's the Flooded Strand for the turn. Pass it back. End a turn. Let's see what we got. Cryptos. Michael's going to figure out modes and all that jazz here. We'll let you know what that is as soon as he lets our table spotter know what that's going to be. Decisions.
And looks like Magalhaes is going to fire back here with an Urza activation. Hope to spike something significant.
Maybe a Cryptic of his own. It's going to be tap draw all the modes on Cryptic to get to Oko, I think. All right, there are some things he can hit here. Yeah, nope. Astrolabe, no. Tap draw. Cool, another Urza. 3, make a food. All right, back to Tomajko. He's untapping.
Got a lethal here.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
Yep, that's going to do it. Okay, well, it's all tied up. It's all tied up. We're going to standard, and Edgar's going to play first. They're going to take a break. Edgar's going to take a step away. He's on the play with Jund Sacrifice. We're going to come back. We're going to go over the deck list, and then we are going to crown our champion. And if Patrick's lucky, intern Rob will get him a cup of coffee. See you back here about 3 or 4 minutes, folks. we're back. Once again. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, StarCityGames.com Players Championship at SCG Tour, hashtag SCGPC, so that you can
join the conversation.
There he is.
Talk to strangers on the internet. It always goes well.
Absolutely does.
They love your opinions. You love theirs. Conversation's rewarding.
It's all good.
Use the hashtag.
You should use the hashtag. Be fun. Have some fun. Watch our final match and chat along. As Oliver Tomajko.
Just talk to strangers on the internet about things you like or don't like.
Edgar Magalhaes, Simic Flash, Jund Sacrifice. Let's start with Tomajko's deck, my friend. It'll be Simic Flash. That's what he's playing. His standard weapon of choice. He loves himself some counterspells, some Nissas, some Hydrate Krasis, some Frilled Mystics, some Night Pack Ambushers. Quick rundown.
Get a little bit ahead on mana. Play some efficient flash threats alongside some counterspells, and quickly get to the spot where you're playing 2 spells a turn, or you're forcing your opponent to spend their turns inefficiently, or you can keep them off their 1 payoff card while you beat down with some serviceable threats.
Mythic Championship 7 in Long Beach last weekend. Seth Manfield, Javier Dominguez, Brad Nelson played this deck all to a top 8 finish. Some minor changes here from Oliver, adding some ops. Looks like additional copy of Brazen Borrower as well. Some slight changes, but the results continue to be the same. Simic Flash is dominating in Standard. For Edgar Magalhaes, however, it was the deck that knocked Brad Nelson out of the tournament to have him be runner-up. It's Jund Sacrifice in the hands of Edgar. This deck is extremely powerful. Peter Goglowski won the Mythic Championship 7 with that deck. I'm sure we'll have the graphic up soon. And there it is, of Cauldron Familiar, Gilded Goose, Corval, Mayhem Devil, and all the synergies, my friend.
Yep, get ahead. A little bit of mana acceleration in this deck as well. A couple key creatures that play very well with sacrificing cards. Some ways to make some food, which is powerful along cards that care about sacrificing, either because you can trigger it by sacrificing food, or because you just have a couple spare game objects laying around to sacrifice, and then a couple good creatures kind of round it out.
There you go. Those are the decks that we're about to watch here now. Will it be a repeat of what we just saw in Long Beach last weekend? Will Jund Sacrifice knock out Simic Flash and hoist the trophy once again? We will have to see as we turn our attention back to our match here between Oliver Tomajko and Edgar Magalhaes. The cup of coffee has arrived.
35 minutes on the nose.
Yep.
Intern Rob, a dealer.
Looking to stay employed here at Star City Games.
Yep. He works for exposure. He
well, as far as I know, you can't be paid in exposure. That's what everybody says on the old Twitter sphere nowadays. Total nonsense. But that's a different that's a different topic for another time. As a Gilded Goose gets things underway here for Edgar Magalhaes. The trick to this matchup, very quickly, for those of you who did not have the opportunity to watch the finals of the Mythic Championship last weekend, get to the board early if you're Edgar. If you get in the battlefield early, especially with Trail of Crumbs, life's going to be pretty easy for you. And he's tapping 2 mana already, and there is the powerful enchantment.
That'll do her.
I'm not going to call it just yet, but it's getting real tough here for Tomajko.
Yeah, I think that Jund Sacrifice is broadly favored in the matchup here. The issue is that some of its hands are pretty rancid. You just have these disconnected parts that don't always line up the right way. Edgar's draw is not that. I mean, this is the busted opening here where you're not going to run out of things to do, ton of selection, ton of mana to work with, and Tomajko's deck just doesn't play from behind that well. Very hard to catch up from this sort of opening for Magalhaes.
Well, you see the Trail of Crumbs engine online alongside the Gilded Goose, Forest, Blood Crypt, food token on the battlefield. Tomajko with just a Forest and a Temple of Mystery. Have to imagine he has a Growth Spiral. Could have some interaction like Quench. But now there's a Cauldron Familiar. More of the engine is getting turned on.
Yeah, I mean this is the whole show.
We need a Witch's Oven.
Yep.
That's the last piece to the puzzle. You can throw in Mayhem Devil in there as well, but now you're going to get all this card selection to be able to set up shop, and then it's on Tomajko to make sure everything lines up accordingly. This is a Growth Spiral. Draw. Oh, no.
Well, it wasn't going that well before.
Well, he did draw a Temple of Mystery for his turn. Top card becomes the bottom. Pass the turn back over to Magalhaes. She's going to make a food with the goose. And now he'll untap and draw. And This is the place Tomajko does not want to be. Goose will sacrifice a food for a mana. That'll trigger Trail of Crumbs. There is Mayhem Devil. That's a piece to the puzzle. Cauldron Familiar is going to come in for 1. You got to remember, Edgar felt like this was the best deck for him to play. He was the most confident in this portion of the tournament. Legacy, he didn't love, but he won his match against Tomajko here. His only Legacy win on the weekend. And he has not lost with Jund Sacrifice yet. Very Canister-esque is Magalhaes right now. Looks like he's going to try to resolve. He's thinking about trying to resolve a Mayhem Devil. And there is the powerful 3/3. If it's in there, this game ends almost immediately.
Yeah, not something that Cynic Flash gets off the battlefield very easily, and not something Tomajko can really play through given the amount of structure that Magalhaes already has set up.
Oh, there's a Brazen Borrower. Petty Theft actually is going to bounce that, so okay. We still play on. Tomajko needs to draw land number 4. He drew Nissa, number 1, it appears. And that's not with the Doctor Order. He does have a Mystical Dispute. He's going to go towards Opt. See if he can find the land. The top card is a land. He'll play that. He'll pass the turn back. Frilled Mystic, Nightpack, Ambusher not up right now, but Mystical Dispute is. And we head back over to Magalhaes, who, while he has his engine online, is not in overdrive just yet. No Mayhem Devil, no Corvold, nothing too crazy yet.
And missed a land drop last turn.
Yes. So it's not a runaway here.
As you mentioned, the oven there, really the last piece of the puzzle. And even though Magalhaes' draws opening is about as good as you can ask for, Tomajko's got a handful of spells too. And if Magalhaes can't find more mana, if he's looking at extra cards, I mean, that's cool, but it's not really pushing you ahead.
Let's try it again. Gust? Gust or Dispute? Dispute. Of the mystical variety. Goodbye. Follow up. Bloody Crypt enters the battlefield tap. Pass the turn back. Magalhaes has not been able to take advantage. Ooh, Castle. Vantress is the land. Is there any reason for Tomajko to go to Nissa and put the shields down? Nissa's incredibly, incredibly powerful. And it might be realistic that Magalhaes can't get off the battlefield.
I thought that Magalhaes showed a Midnight Rider earlier.
Or Murderous Rider?
Murderous Rider.
I think that may be true. Well, here we go. Nissa. No Blood Crypt untapped. Just going to be a basic island.
Yeah, the breeding pool is 2,
Or
and then you have a range of responses possible.
Yep.
This is nothing to be done here.
All right, back Edgar's way. No breeding pool to untap, just an island available, so able to tap for a lone blue here for Oliver Tomajko. And Tomajko, after missing a land on that growth spiral, peeling a temple to hit a land for the turn. So not able to jump ahead on acceleration. Is playing from behind the entire game, something that Cynic Flash doesn't do incredibly well.
But Magalhaes has not really been able to capitalize on it just yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's had some okay turns getting set up here, but in terms of his actual presence on the battlefield, his ability to attack and block, not really that impressive right now.
Magalhaes shaking his head. He's not thrilled. Things are not going the way he hoped, given the turn 1 goose, turn 2 Trail of Crumbs. So he's going to sacrifice a food to the goose. And with the trail, there's a land. All right.
Big hit.
Yeah, you have to imagine it is. He hasn't played land yet for the turn. 3 mana. What do we got? Land. All right. Swift End. We'll take care of that. He'll take 2, of course. So Murderous Rider's on an adventure. Follow-up. Cauldron Familiar. Trigger. Little drain and gain. No oven yet. Back to Tomajko. Tomajko's got to be not thrilled with that, but it could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah, that's been the story so far. Given how good Magalhaes' opening was, his circumstances could be a whole lot worse.
And there's an attack for 3. Magalhaes thinking about blocking with the Cauldron Familiar, and he will. And now Tomajko will just pass the turn back with a ton of mana up. So not going to try to deploy a new Nissa. Just going to do that. Leads me to believe that he has Frilled Mystic available. And I think Magalhaes may have just be passing the turn back, and he is. Oh boy. So what do we have here if you're Tomajko? He's got a copy of Nightpack Ambusher. He'll play it. Alright. Is there another Swift End? Looks like there is. So, Magalhaes will lose 2 more.
But this could be a window for Nissa. Tomajko would really love an extra land here.
I love one.
A little bit of extra padding here to protect the Nissa.
It's another attack here for 3. Will Cauldron Familiar jump in front again? By all indications, Magalhaes knows all the tricks of the trade of this deck. Looks like he's been playing it a lot, so he's going to block with Cauldron Familiar. Okay. 2 mana. Thought about Paradise Druid. He thought about it.
Problem is, it's hard to leave up the mana and just say go against Goose plus Trail Crumbs. Does put some pressure on you to do something. You don't have all the time in the world to just wait for the ideal circumstances to start casting stuff.
Alright, there's Paradise. Pass. End step. Create a food. Yep. Are we going to sack that food to get the cat back on? No. Okay. Let's go back over to Edgar. He'll draw. You see in Tomajko's hand, he does have that Ether Gust, another copy of Nissa in hand. No access to Frilled Mystic on this turn. A little short. Gust does cover most things, and he almost cast it a few turns ago before opting to go towards Mystical Dispute. So if you're Edgar, you may have caught that. And at the very least, that's what you can think about, is what counter spells do you have access to? Well, Quench, sure, I could probably play around that. Frilled Mystic, don't got to worry about that. Sinister Sabotage, a little worrisome.
But not the end of the world. I mean, that's, it's not adding to the battlefield. It's not a counterspell he can really play around all that easily. Likely that card's good at some point regardless.
And those are the things I'm sure that are running through his head right now. Brontodon. The big fella.
Bang.
Thrashy Bee. What's after that? Cauldron Familiar? You're thinking about coming back, huh? Okay. Let's pay 1 because the food token got sacrificed. A little Trail of Crumbs. Mayhem Devil. We're getting the shop set up, or at least we're trying to. Keep in mind, Brontodon's a 3/4 in the face of 3/3 lands. Pretty big deal there. And Edgar's going to pass a turn back. So, Brazen Borrower is going to come off of an adventure and onto the battlefield. So this will allow Tomajko to pressure in the air.
Tomajko has drawn an Opt, one of the big changes he's made to this deck. And he's in a spot right now where he doesn't really have a mana to spare.
In for 3. Magalhaes going to fall down to 11. And remember, Simic Flash is not a deck that has reach. Nothing like Cauldron Familiar pings or burn spells. It's got to deal all 20 on its own.
Gonna be tough to do against Cauldron Familiar. Plus Gilded Goose.
What's Tomajko want to do now? That's one of those turns, I think, too, for Tomajko, where he wishes that Op was a land.
Yes.
he could play Nissa and have Gust available, I believe. And he can't do that now.
Yeah, sometimes a mana is trivial, and sometimes it's all the difference.
Yeah. It's part of what makes Magic the best game in the world. What do we do now? Boy. Oh. All right.
Here we go.
Okay. Now he knows. He knows about the Mayhem Devil that's over there. Temple, untapped. Okay, this could go. Oh, this could go so bad. All right, make food.
Well, at some point, I mean, his position is not getting better waiting.
I guess the thought process is, if I get out of this turn with Nissa, I'm doing pretty good. Though it is worth noting here, Patrick, there's only one force in the battlefield.
No,
so it's not like he's getting a huge mana advantage.
But what are you... I mean, Magalhaes does not have to play into a counterspell at all in this present moment. Just with Gilded Goose plus Trail plus Cauldron Familiar, he can generate a major advantage without playing anything out of his hand. So you can't just hang back on your counterspells the whole time. I know it's risky, and this turn might end up going extremely bad, but what's the alternative? I just don't think waiting makes his position that much better. If you're waiting for another land to be a little bit more secure, sure, I guess, but there's no guarantee there's a land on top of your deck, and your position is only going to get worse the next turn.
Okay, I guess I'll say this, and I missed this aspect of things. I was so focused on the lands that I forgot the Paradise Druid is active. Mm-hmm. So Paradise Druid in combination with the Temple of Mystery means that he has access to 2 mana, and that he could Gust the Mayhem Devil. But it looks like the Mayhem Devil has joined the battlefield. So maybe Oliver's saving that Gust for something else like a Core Vault or Casualties of War. I think your point makes a lot of sense, though. It's not getting much better. If you play on an infinite timeline against the person that's got Goose, Familiar, Trail of Crumbs, you're probably going to lose.
Yeah, your counterspells are not good right now. If you make the battlefield a little bit messy, if you accrue some advantage somewhere, if you shorten the length of the game with your Brazen Bar or whatever, then maybe your counterspells come back online. But if you just say go and you're a little bit behind on the battlefield, Magalhaes does not have to do anything.
Is it the oven? It's a Cauldron Familiar. Okay. It's going to resolve. I'm not going to fight over that, bozo. So, little drain, little gain. But now what? Opt. Top card becomes the bottom. New card coming. I think it may have been a growth spiral. Let's have
Breeding Pool, I think.
Okay, well, don't hate that.
Yeah, a land's a good hit here.
And there's another land. I think one land's a good hit, and then you kind of want to stop after that in combination with Nissa.
Yeah, but, I mean, Tomajko's position still is, even with the Nissa surviving, still not that good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's got Mayhem Devil, basically that Mayhem Devil with a bunch of 1 toughness creatures, and he's got a sea of 3/3s lined up against a Thrashing Brontodon he can't do anything about.
Mm-hmm.
To say nothing of all of the infrastructure that Magalhaes has set up to use his mana, not playing the counter spells, draw more cards, keep pushing his advantage.
In comes the Brazen Borrower. Alright, here we go. Sacrifice of food to get back Cauldron Familiar. Pay with Trail of Crumbs, trigger the Mayhem Devil. Magalhaes will add a land to the hand. Now trigger the Cauldron Familiar, a little drain, a little gain. Again, Oliver, I believe, with that copy of Aether Gust in hand, is trying to figure out the best way to utilize that incredibly powerful card. That's a basic forest.
I think part of the problem with the Aether Gust is just tapping out to Gust a Mayhem Devil against Trail Crumbs plus stuff it's just a dead end.
It's not your favorite.
It just picks it up, puts it back out there.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's bad, you might just have to ride with it for a little while and try to set up a board complicated enough where there's a mistake for Magalhaes to make, or there's one window where he needs to do multiple things all at the same time, and breaking up in the middle of a cycle is worth something. Something along those lines.
Make a food token, untap. Draw. Again, really the only missing piece of the puzzle right now is Witch's Oven. Doesn't need it to keep operating because he has the most important card out there, which in my opinion is Trail of Crumbs. Past that, you can kind of figure everything else out, and eventually you'll find what you're looking for with Trail of Crumbs. Important to note that Nissa currently sitting at 7 loyalty. 8 is when the ultimate goes off, so 2 turns from now. Could be a possibility. Magalhaes does have pretty decent control over that, with Mayhem Devil being able to deal 1 damage to anything, and food to sacrifice, all that jazz. And you see next to Magalhaes is our head judge and head of organized play, Jared Silva, for the SCG Tour.
SCG veteran.
Absolutely. You see Edgar checking on the Nissa and checking on the battlefield. And I love this. I was curious if he was going to make an attack with Cauldron Familiars, plural, and if he wanted to go with them all or split the difference. It looks like he wants to bring it. With 2. Nissa's going to fall down to 5. So he does have the great ability to control that. Also, just blocking Cauldron Familiar is not going to get you anywhere.
Right.
So you kind of just got to let it through.
Arguably worse being in the graveyard than...
Here's Murderous Rider.
If it gets countered, cool. Not cool.
Yep.
Not going to expose anything valuable to Tomajko having this much open mana.
At least not yet.
Again, Magalhaes' position only getting stronger over time here.
What do we got now? How about another one? Yep. All right, kick it. What's this? Castle Vantress. Well, what are we looking for?
Guess Hydroid Crisis. I just don't see... Going to be hard for these counter spells to be worth very much.
Yeah, looks like Frilled Mystic and Mystical Dispute are going to the bottom, looking for the Jellyfish Hydra Beast. Well, it looks like we drew a copy of Frilled Mystic.
No, I think he left it on top.
Okay, I take that back.
Still fine, I guess, having the counter spells for the time being, but the battlefield is slipping away from him a little bit without Magalhaes really needing to play any cards out of his hand.
Well, I will say it is worth noting right now that given Tomajko's setup, he'll play a Breeding Pool, enters the battlefield tapped. He'll untap it with Nissa, able to tap for multiple green sources of mana. One thing he's able to do, given the lands that are on the battlefield and Nissa's mana generation, is he can play 2 Frilled Mystic in 1 turn. So, if Core Vault or anything else is trying to show up, that's not going to work. But Mayhem Devil's already on the battlefield, so make a food. Time to untap. And let's draw. We're getting into the thick of it now here in the finals of our StarCityGames.com Players Championship. Legacy, won by Magalhaes. Modern, won by Tomajko. Standard? We'll see. Winner, $20,000, StarCityGames.com Players Championship title belt. Are we thinking beatdowns? I'm always thinking beatdowns. Get 'em, Murderous Riders. Here come Cauldron Familiars. Murderous Riders, of course, are 2 3s into 3 3s right now, which means that Magalhaes could finish them off with an assist from Mayhem Devil.
And this might be the kind of spot where you see Tomajko probably won't come up here, but part of the reason he's starting to sit back on the Aether Gust is to set up a spot where Magalhaes makes an attack, assuming that the blocks are going to be bad because Mayhem Devil can kind of take care of whatever, and then actually block and make some inroads. And we're actually seeing it here. This is the move that Tomajko was waiting for. The Aether Gust earlier on the Mayhem Devil really wouldn't have gotten him anywhere. Here it might end up that he gets to make 1 good block or something, which was not an option before.
Yep. Devil's going to go back on top, predictably.
And now also he's doing it in a spot where he can Aether Gust and leave up a hard counter.
Yep.
So maybe he can take care of the Mayhem Devil altogether.
Now again, keep in mind, he was able to Gust with the Breeding Pool. You see the lands with the dice on them? Blue, blue, green. Paradise Druid is a green, and then the forest in the lands back there with the Castle of Antris and the Temple of Mystery. So he's got access to 2 Frilled Mystics again right now. Doesn't even actually have to use the Paradise Druid. So he set up a nice little turn here where Mayhem Devil can be countered not once but twice. Murderous Rider. Unless I'm missing something here. No, 2/3 lifelink. Dies, goes to the bottom of the deck. Yep, bin him. He's trying to get to Nissa a little bit, so Nissa's down to 4. Okay. Tomajko set up a nice game here. Took that risk, that turn to resolve that Nissa, but now Nissa's on the battlefield and starting to run away with this game.
Yeah, had to do something. Spot's still not awesome.
I think this is shifting Tomajko's way. I do. With that Mayhem Devil off the battlefield, no, we're going to see a sack of a food, of course. Mayhem Devil's going to go to the grip, obviously. Is Edgar going to try to resolve it right now? That's the big question. He has to imagine that Tomajko has at least 1 Frilled Mystic, maybe 2.
Curious what Magalhaes is setting up over there, because he was bottlenecked on mana early on in the game. His hand's still got 4 cards in it. You got to imagine he's setting up something big.
Boom. There's Frilled Mystic. You're not careful, you can get yourself killed. Magalhaes is at 15, that's quite a bit, but if he is not careful, this game could turn around in an instant. That is how powerful Nissa is. Does he try to resolve something else now? Oliver has played a beautiful game to get back into it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely beautiful game.
Magalhaes had about as good of an opening as you can ask for, and Tomajko took some lumps, missed some land drops. Remains to be seen if he can come all the way back, but he's running out of resources here. He's down to, I believe, 1 live card, maybe 2, but he's running low, and Magalhaes has a lot to work with and a lot of life as well. But Tomajko doing a splendid job getting himself back into it.
These were our number 1 and number 2 overall seeds coming into the 3rd day of competition. They have had a hell of a tournament, both of them had. Oliver has made things look pretty easy all weekend long, but things are starting to get tough for him here in day number 3. He has been behind in each of his matches to kick off these 3-match runs. Lost in match 1 against Dylan Donegan before winning match 2 and match 3. Same thing can be said here. He lost each time in Legacy, but won each time in Modern and Standard. And now he might be going to old Big Papa here in Corvold. Might be thinking he can get the big dragon to resolve. And if it does resolve, we know how powerful that can be. Yeah, here's 5 mana. How about Corvold? How about No Chance? Gone. That's countered. This is an Overgrown Tomb. Pass the turn back. Michael's going to untap very, very quickly here. He's got a whole lot of 3/3s on the battlefield. A couple Frilled Mystics too. I think he made Drew a Gust. This may win him the game.
Yeah,
right
I think Aether Gust might be lethal.
This might just win him the game.
Clear out the Brontodon.
Yep. That may have been the perfect draw. Going to bounce that.
Wow.
That is going to do it.
Beautiful.
He came all the way back. Oliver Tomajko is going to win game number 1 here over Edgar Magalhaes. Simic Flash almost missed that 3rd land drop. Missed the land on the Growth Spiral. Drew the Temple right on time. Then found another land. Found the right spots to deploy Nissa. And came all the way back.
I mean, that it comes down to Aether Gust. I think a lot of people had the instinct. He was tight on mana. It's not the worst spot to use on the Mayhem Devil, but Tomajko realized it doesn't really get you that far to put that on top of the deck. But if you take some risks, get the battlefield to be a little bit jammed up, it's possible somewhere down the line the Aether Gust in the middle of the combat will pay better dividends. That's exactly what happened. Magalhaes lost 2 Murderous Riders for nothing, and Tomajko's top-decked Aether Gust there was able to finish out the game.
Oliver is locked in right now. Edgar's going to have to re-lock back in. You see a little bit of frustration with such a great start, starting, of course, with Gilded Goose in a Trail of Crumbs, and then couldn't get it done. Picks up the loss there. He's going to have to bounce back, and we're going to start with Edgar Magalhaes right now on his sideboard. Let's take a little look here. He's got some copies of Lovestruck Beast, 3 of those, 2 Massacre Girls, another copy of Murderous Rider, another Brontodon, 2 Wicked Wolves, 3 Duresses, 3 copies of Noxious Grasp.
I think he wants a little bit more of the Terminated action. I think Noxious Grasp and Murderous Rider are really strong here. I don't think it's a great matchup for Wicked Wolf. I don't like trying to play... All right, you have a battlefield. Now I try to resolve something I think plays too much into the flash deck's hand. But cheap removal, anything to keep the battlefield clear, I think is going to be good.
I think we're also going to see him go towards Lovestruck Beast like we saw Piotr Goglowski do at the Mythic Championship last weekend. Just wants to get lower to the ground and pressure his opponent a little bit more. Lovestruck Beast does a great job of that. Very big creature as well. Casualties of War are almost certainly going to come out of the deck. It's just a question of what's going to come in here for Magalhaes. Other side of things here for Oliver Tomajko, a lot of options. Hydroid Krasis, Brazen Borrower, 2 more copies of Ether Gust, Crushing Canopy. He's got 2 Lovestruck Beasts of his own, a Chemistry's Insight, Mystical Disputes, Negate, Frogify, Sorcerer's Spyglass. I know that last one's going to come in. Want to shut off those Witches' Ovens.
Yeah, Sorcerer's Spyglass is key here. If you cut out the oven, then a lot of the sacrifice food synergies are much more modest, much harder to set up. The game's likely to go on long enough that I'm interested in Hydroid Krasis. I think it's a good matchup for Chemistry's Insight as well, and I'm interested in the Aether Gusts.
Well, those are your options there, folks. Game number 2 about to be underway. These two are going back and forth. We've watched some great Magic here. It looks like Tomajko's going to take a short break, and I think we might just do the same here for a moment if we could. Might hear a couple words from our friends over at Ultimate Guard. They've been sponsors of the SCG Tour all year long, so give us a minute or two, give Oliver a minute or two, and we'll watch game number 2 unfold here in just a sec. Thanks to all of our friends over at Ultimate Guard for sponsoring the SCG Tour all through 2019 and many years prior to that, along with all of our sponsors, our friends over at Carnox, Okie Dokie Dice, and don't forget, I know you probably did, our friends earlier this year over at Tigtone.
Oh, yeah. Shout out Tigtone.
There you go.
Thank you for your support of the SCG Tour.
And of course, we have plenty of sponsors for our invitationals here locally in Roanoke, Virginia.
Big Lick Entertainment.
Among many others.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Talk to me about it.
The other Buffalo Wild Wings.
Talk to me about it. 2 of them here in Roanoke. Favorite flavor of wings?
Probably lemon garlic.
Okay. I would have not guessed that. Are they... they're not sour, are they?
No.
Okay. I go for some wings tonight.
I don't know what my... where am I going to be at?
I don't even know what that means.
Mood.
Oh.
Energy.
I see. Oh, intern Rob wants to bring you some wings, apparently. No? 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 Okay. Okay.
Some recommendations. Not Carrabba's.
Well, you already ate
And not
that.
anything Carrabba's adjacent.
I don't want any more Italian food. We're good. I got the simplistic spaghetti and meatballs for lunch. Great job by them. Great job. I will admit, though, I'm going to put it out there, it wasn't very good. Great job by them, but not very good. No one's fault.
Tomajko played that game so well.
He did, yeah.
So well.
Yeah, he did.
Just the counter spells only get good again once you've made the game complicated and sticky enough for Magalhaes to maybe you'd run into something. If you just leave the battlefield clean and Magalhaes has some card draw engines, that's going to be the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to take some risks, tapping out for that Nissa, very risky at the time. Not using Aether Gust on the Mayhem Devil initially, that looked pretty risky too. But eventually all those risky plays came back to pay dividends in a spot where he was very behind early on in the game.
Pretty unreal. Pretty unreal game there by Tomajko. And he got the job done. So we continue on here to game number 2. Magalhaes back against the wall. He loses this one. His tournament is over. And Oliver Tomajko becomes your Players Champion. "19 years old and already one of the game's best is now Magalhaes is going to send it back, and so is Tomajko. Neither person saw what they were looking for, so they'll send it away. And while they do that, the Star City Games YouTube page will probably come to play here in just a moment, where you can watch replays of this tournament, all of our SCG Tour events, our best of SCG Tour moments versus live with Corey Baumeister and Ross Merriam. Commander versus with Jeremy Nolan, Justin Parnell, Stephen Green, and Jonathan Suarez. They're hanging out at Commander Fest DC, which was incredibly well attended, so shout out to all those folks who had some fun playing Commander this past weekend with Benny Smith, Sheldon Menery, our Commander versus crew, the Professor, and a whole lot of other players.
Yo, talk to me about Command Fest.
What do you want me to talk to you about?
I don't know very much about the details.
Okay, well, it's a weekend of Commander in Washington, D.C.
Is that a Wizards organized event, or is that just a separate thing?
It's a Wizards organized event. They had 3 this year, 1 in Seattle, 1 in Chicago, and 1 in Washington, D.C. We held, we ran the one in D.C., Pastimes ran the one in Chicago, and Channel Fireball ran the one in Seattle.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's great to have for them to stretch out to doing some conventions that aren't hyper competitive focused. Most of the places where they've gotten venues and gotten TOs involved have been on just tournaments. So that's great.
These have been a resounding success for all the tournament organizers and all the players playing Commander. So kudos to Wizards of the Coast. Kudos to all the tournament organizers, and shout out to all the players who filled up those tournament halls, not in so much of a tournament setting and just having a blast playing their favorite format, as we are underway here in a more intimate setting at the Star City Game Center in Roanoke, Virginia. A Witch's Oven kicks things off. A forest there for Tomajko. See if Edgar has a Gilded Goose, a Cauldron Familiar, or a Trail of Crumbs, as that's a mountain he may be without green mana, folks. Tomajko has land number 2, and I believe Sorcerer's Spyglass number 1. So the Iron Unkind here to Magalhaes. Sorcerer's Spyglass going to get a good look. Show you Mayhem Devils, plural, Noxious Grasp, Gilded Goose. You want to talk about a big draw step.
Yeah, gotta be a land. And even still, now if the Spyglass shuts down the oven, it's not like he's really got a whole lot going on if he draws a land. He's got some 3/3s, something, but he's got to hit it right now.
He needs to hit it right now. Preferably a green source here for Magalhaes. He'll draw a card. He drew a Blood Crypt. That will work. Mayhem Devil is onto the battlefield. He will get to continue to play on as we head back over to Oliver Tomajko. Tomajko will draw a card. Picked up a copy of Temple of Mystery. Is that the land that he wants to play? It is. So he will take a look. Top card, where you going? To the bottom. Tomajko does have a copy of Aether Gust in hand, so you head back over to Magalhaes. He'd still love a green source. Step 1, I think, will be attacking here from Magalhaes. So here comes the Mayhem Devil. Tomajko is going to fall. Nope. Going to gust that away.
Yeah, no reason to take the hit here. You're going to gust anyway.
Yeah.
Gust also is going to keep... Magalhaes has to choose either losing the Mayhem Devil forever or being another turn off of drawing a land.
Yeah, that's the big question. And I think that's why you're seeing him pause right now. This card is going to the bottom. Magalhaes does have the follow-up here in that other copy of Mayhem Devil. No land there for Edgar, so he passes the turn back over to Oliver. We know Oliver's got land number 4 ruled up, and this is the sweet spot here for Simic Flash, able to leave up that 4 mana for Frilled Mystic and Nightpack Ambusher. Does Edgar attack? Well, He does have Noxious Grass to make it safe, so he's going to come in here for 3 points of damage. Has he found that green source?
But Tomajko getting to that turn at 20, with Magalhaes having nothing of substance on the battlefield. Gotta like your position if you're Tomajko.
Breeding Pool enters the battlefield tapped. Here comes Mayhem Devil once again. Tomajko down to 14. Nothing doing here for our Simic Flash player. He's got another Breeding Pool in hand. That was his draw step for the turn. That will come down. You see the Nissa that's in his hand. He's not going to use that just yet. So we head back over to Edgar. He'll attack here for 3. Oliver. Giving it a long look. Boy. Frilled Mystic. Boy, Oliver better hope he doesn't have Forest Corvold. I'll tell you what. Now, if you're Magalhaes...
That's 2 very specific draw steps, though, in a tight window.
You're not wrong. This is a swift end. Get that thing out of here.
But Tomajko just trying to set up. Can he get to Nissa, untap a land? Remember, he's got 2 breeding pools, and then have 4 mana available to protect the Nissa.
It looks like he's going to get there, folks.
He knew that Frilled Mystic was not going to exchange profitably. It's going to trade in combat or line up with a removal spell, but it was about getting to this spot.
And he put a focus on his most important card and the most powerful card in his deck. It is Nissa who shakes the world. The 5-mana Planeswalker is here. Untap. Make a forest into a 3/3 Vigilance creature with Frilled Mystic up. We head back over to Magalhaes.
And Magalhaes knows what's going on over there, too. There's no way that Tomajko would have played that Frilled Mystic in the middle of combat. Knowing Magalhaes' hand, we're not about setting up Nissa with Counterspell backup. So how do you navigate from here?
Well, here's the problem. There's a Cauldron Familiar. And even if that were something like a Duress doesn't clear out Frilled Mystic. That's part of your problem right there, folks.
Remember, the Oven combo shut off by that Spyglass from Tomajko.
Here's an attempt at a swift end on the Nissa who shakes the world. That ain't happening. Frilled Mystic will take care of that. To the graveyard goes the Murderous Rider.
I think Sinister Sabotage might have been the draw for Tomajko, which is really good here. Every counterspell.
Tomajko's going to plus the Nissa. Let's go beatdowns. Cauldron Familiar will chump block the forest. 3 points of damage are going to come through. We're going to head back over to Magalhaes, who still has not been able to draw a green source of mana. We know he's got a copy of Noxious Grasp in hand. We do know that. Blood Crypt's going to enter the battlefield tapped. He might actually consider playing it untapped. He will. He's going to fall down to 9. He's going to get a Murderous Rider onto the battlefield. Pass the turn back in the upkeep. How about a Noxious Grasp? How about no? Sinister Sabotage. Surveil. Take a look at the top card. It's going to stay on top.
Another Aether Gust, another counterspell.
Sure is. Oliver Tomajko was the consensus pick by many to win this tournament when the field was announced. Felt like he was the most technically strong player in the tournament, as Mayhem Devil's going to go to the bottom. His results certainly do speak for themselves, and it looks like he's going to get to add another one here to the resume, as all these creatures are going to attack. Murderous Rider's going to trade there. Magalhaes is going to go up to 2 life, and it's been a great tournament for Edgar, no doubt about it. But for Oliver Tomajko, it's his first big championship. He's won 2 opens, and in just a second here, we're going to get to call him our StarCityGames.com Players Champion. It's a Corvold. It's a countered. And that is going to do it. Oliver Tomajko wins this game and match here over Edgar Magalhaes. A 3-day marathon affair where he was on top the whole time and never relinquished his crown. He is your 2019 StarCityGames.com Players Champion.
Congratulations.